So today's talk is going to be on understanding and managing anger. And I suppose the big question is, why do we get angry anyway? And anger is really important for us. We all get angry. It's natural. It's a natural phenomenon. It's healthy. And it's important because we can't fully guarantee that anybody in our life is able to protect us or look after us. So we need to have a resource inside that can protect ourselves. And anger is tied in with our whole protection, our whole defense system. We need to use anger to feel safe, to feel strong. It's tied in with our sense of being strong. When we are scared, anger is there to help us to manage the thing that makes us afraid, to stand up in the face of fear, to deal with fear. So often fear is there first. We have a situation that scares us a little bit, and then anger comes in to help us to do something about it, to deal with the issue. Of course, sometimes we feel fear and anger doesn't come in, or the fear is too great for anger to help us manage. But more often than not, when we have some kind of fear, we become strong in some way to deal with it. And that usually involves some level, however mild, of anger, or even just empowerment. Like you could see that on the spectrum, kind of the anger ties into a sense of feeling empowered or feeling strong inside. That strength that we can hold ourselves, contain ourselves. It's not that that is anger as such, but that it's on that spectrum at the very, very low level. So there's a certain level of anger that we need, that's good for us, that stops us from being just weak and not able to hold our own, I suppose, in the world, not able to stand on our own 2 feet, stand our ground, stand strong. That in itself, while you might not necessarily be getting angry, standing our ground or being strong is connected to that anger feeling, just on a very, very mild, on the milder side of it. And then of course we have the other end of the spectrum of anger, which is where it ties into rage, and where we can do really awful things, where we can really hurt people or even really hurt ourselves with our own anger. So from this place we can also get, we can say a lot of bad words, we can be really cutting or hurtful with our words, we can do things to really cause pain for another person. So on the mild level of anger, we've got just being strong and empowered and feeling like we are able to mind or protect ourselves. And then on the other end of the spectrum of anger, we've got all-out rage, where sometimes we're in an uncontrollable place. Either way, all of it is necessary to have inside as tools or as part of who we are. And if we find that we don't manage the stronger end of the anger spectrum very well, if we find that we are getting very angry very fast, very easily for irrational means, then we obviously need to learn how to manage it, or to understand what exactly is happening for us. Why are we getting such high levels of anger so consistently? And, what are the triggers? Is it in some way related to something in our past that we haven't dealt with? For example, we might not have stood up for ourselves in a situation, and so we're still angry about that. Or maybe for a long period of time when we were younger, we were bullied, and now we have stepped into our power too much and we get angry too often. So there's something about finding the things in the past that are triggering strong levels of anger, if that's what's happening for you now in the present. So while anger is important and managing it is essential, if we don't learn to manage anger that's irrational or difficult, it can play huge havoc in our lives. It can affect our work, it can affect our social life, it can hurt our family. it can have a real impact on our lives that is not healthy, not helpful, can push people away, can ruin opportunities that we could have had in work or in life or in friend groups, can keep us isolated from people. So we really do need to learn about our anger, what triggers it, how we have been using it in life. So, for example, let's say I had a grandmother who was very pretentious, and I have a friend who doesn't have any connections to anybody who is pretentious. And let's say if I meet someone who I perceive as being a bit pretentious, it might make me feel angry because maybe I haven't resolved my anger towards my granny for the pressure she put on me from being a certain way. Now, I might feel angry towards this person, but my friend might just find this person nice or interesting or funny or be entertained by them and not be affected at all by how this person is. So if there are certain specific things that are triggering your anger, it's really important to get to know what those things are. So if you could take some time, maybe pause this video or write on the worksheet, where is it that I react? Because everybody will have their own places in life where they react with anger. And it's just totally different for everybody. Certain things will make you angry and certain things won't. And why is that? Obviously, it's very much connected to your past, to what you've learned growing up, to the people who've been in your childhood, in your life. And getting to understand what it is that triggers your anger and why is really important, because it will help you to manage it better in the future. It will also show you where there are things in your life that might be unresolved that you might need to do something about or talk through or get upset about or deal with, that are being pushed down, and so they're being triggered again and again by things that remind you of it, and then your anger is coming up in reaction to that. So figuring out where your anger is coming from and how it manifests in your life and what are the triggers is a really important piece. You could also maybe think about if there's a certain time when anger is coming up consistently for you. Let's say a boss in work regularly triggers your anger, and you might think, oh, but the boss maybe didn't do that much, so why do I keep getting angry with this particular person? And then if you really pay attention to that and try and notice how that particular type of anger feels, because there's many different ways to feel anger. There's many different ways for anger to express itself. So if you kind of connect with that feeling and try and remember when you felt that way before, sometimes that's a way of showing you, oh, hang on, this feels like how I felt when I was sitting beside that girl in class when I was in 5th class, and she was actually quite mean to me, and I felt this anger towards her, but I didn't express it with her. I was too scared of her. But for some reason this feels the same as my boss, and then you might realize that your boss reminds you in some way of that person. So it might show you that actually this anger goes back to that time. So that's one way of seeing how your anger has come from your past and how to manage it. So I'd like to walk through some techniques of how to manage anger, and it will be different for everybody because your anger is unique to you. So certain things might make sense to you, certain things might be relevant, and other things might not. So one is taking deep breaths. It's a classic thing. Everybody talks about taking deep breaths, counting to 10. When you take a deep breath, you are telling your nervous system to relax. You're encouraging it to calm down, to become more parasympathetic, more relaxed. So when you're stressed or angry or under pressure, you don't breathe as deep. So when you take a deep breath, it's encouraging your body to come back into that relaxed state. And of course, an example of a deep breath is not just a quick one, but quite a slow one. So you breathe in, you fill deep down into the bottom of your lungs, and you slowly breathe out. And as you breathe out, you can use the exhalation, which tends to be relaxing, to relax your neck and shoulders, relax your arms, your legs, your back. Notice any muscles in your body that are stressed, and as you slowly breathe out, try and slowly relax these different parts of your body as well. Some people find that a technique that helps them to manage their anger is to visualize something. So almost like when we get anger, we get a lot of adrenaline in the body, and we want to process that adrenaline. So if you imagine like a big tsunami wave crashing onto a shore and just pulverizing everything, sometimes it can help you feel like you've expressed the anger internally, at least, without actually doing anything outside. Some people like to imagine being a tornado and just ripping up everything. Some people like to imagine hurting someone or crushing. Not that you should get too much into hurting someone, but maybe just punching someone and then they disappear and it's all gone. Not to get too into that, but that sometimes that is a helpful way of dealing with anger, to imagine something and then not imagining it with the intent of hurting anybody, but imagining it with the intent of releasing that anger, expressing that anger inside so that you can let it go. So there's something about not being attached to the visuals, that the visuals are just the thoughts trying to express what you were experiencing, but not thinking that you actually want any of these things to happen, just using it as a tool to let go of that anger. When there's a lot of adrenaline in the body changes a bit. So the blood goes to the arms and legs to prepare you to fight or flight. Goes to your eyes, your pupils dilate so that you can take in more around you. There's more blood goes to your lungs so that you can breathe better, deeper, get more oxygen. So when there's all this adrenaline in the body is ready to fight or to run. So if you do some physical exercise, it can kind of help to mop up that adrenaline or to process or use that adrenaline, depending on the level of adrenaline that your body has accumulated. So if you've had a huge surge of strong anger like rage, that might take a little while, that might take quite a bit of exercise. Or if it's just a small bit of anger, a couple of stretches or a little walk might help to just process it and let it go. Either way, doing something physical is often very helpful in processing adrenaline. So any kind of exercise that you feel works for you, that helps you process it. For example, a lot of people find that going for a run really helps the anger come up and out, and that by the time they come back, they're very peaceful. And sometimes they'll have images in their head, visuals, to help them process the feelings of anger. And those visuals, again, not to be too attached to them. It could be shouting at someone that you're angry with, or, blowing down your house because you have a problem with it, or it could be any kind of visual that helps eradicate the problem, usually is what the visual is about. So not being attached to those visuals, but letting them go and doing the exercise process. Some people find that dancing helps. So many people find they get a bit of a high from dancing. So not only do they process the anger, but they really feel a strong surge of dopamine or serotonin. In fact, for most exercise, you will feel a bit of dopamine and serotonin. You will feel a bit of a good high, a healthy, happy high. But for some reason, dancing seems to really bring this up for some people. So if it makes sense, if you're really raging, you might not want to dance. You might just want to hurt somebody or break something. But if that's something that works for you, then dancing can be actually very, very productive, helpful and positive. Some people just like to go for a slow walk where it's more like a meditation, and they take in nature, they take deep breaths, they take in the sounds of nature, birds, trees, the sea, and try and feel connected to their environment around them. Or some people go for a fast walk, which is similar to a jog in a way, that they're processing as they walk. Another common one is to punch a pillow. I remember the first time someone told me to punch a pillow, and I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. But then a time came when I was actually really angry, and I really wanted to get that anger out. And I was so thick that I thought, I'll give it a go. I'll punch this pillow and see how stupid it is. And But when I punched the pillow, it really helped. I really did feel like I was getting the anger out. And once I realized how to do it, it became a very effective tool. Some people, when they have huge rage and it's just like full body rage, they will kneel beside a bed and clench their fists over their head and punch down on the bed with all their strength. And that, because again, the adrenaline is all through the body and it's so physical, that process of really using your whole upper body to pound on a bed, which is a safe place to pound, can really help to process that like huge level of anger. Again, you don't have to be attached to whatever thoughts come with the anger. It's really important, because I think many people are actually quite scared of their anger, and it's really not helpful to be afraid of your anger. So anger is natural, it's there. The images that come, you don't have to be attached to them. They're just trying to help you express the feeling inside. But if you can just allow your anger to come out, then you find you feel more peaceful afterwards. So you can become really good at processing anger. You can become like an anger management guru. You can learn how to deal with it, to not take it too seriously, to know how to manage it and do its thing. And for some, when there's really, really deep anger or rage, that pounding on the bed really helps. Another thing that really helps, that's kind of tied in with these techniques, is to either lie on a bed or lie on the ground and, almost like a child throws a tantrum, kick your arms and legs. You know, obviously it's really important to be careful, because we can lose ourselves a little bit in the anger when we do this. So to keep connected to that observing part of you that's watching what's going on, and to make sure to stay safe. So you don't want to bang your head or your nose or anything like that, or actually hurt yourself. But if you have a soft mat or a soft mattress, or a safe place that if you bang your arms and legs a little bit, that it's actually not going to hurt you or damage you, that can be really cathartic, can just be really healing. If something awful has happened to you, if something, and things happen in life that are so huge for us that we can't handle, and sometimes this is the proper way to help process that pain or that anger that comes as a result of a massive injustice that can happen. Sometimes people will feel a real urge to shout or to scream, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. No more than there's anything wrong with pounding a bed or a pillow. You don't have to take these things seriously. You don't have to feel like you're going mad. It's just your anger being processed and coming out. So you could go to a quiet place. It depends on where you live. I mean, I have gone to sort of cliffs near where I live when something has really, really upset me and I've just really wanted to scream. And I've gone and made sure there was nobody around, and then just let the scream out, or the shout, or the roar. Or, you know, sometimes when there's a lot of pain, like I've really injured myself in the past. Once I damaged my knee and I had to get stitches, and it was incredibly painful. It was a very deep, very long wound. And at that time I did a lot of whining. It just felt to me like I was letting that pain out. It wasn't really anger so much as pain. Some people like to growl. You know, growling is something that's been commonly found that people will do when they're really upset. So there's screaming, there's growling, there's whining, there's grumbling, whatever it is. Sound can help. Even the feeling of the sound going through you can help you to feel like you're processing it. A more classic kind of technique to manage anger is to take time out. So if you're in a situation and you see that it's going to spiral, and you see that a big pile of anger is going to come up and it's going to mess with your head, it's going to mess with your day, if possible, taking yourself out of the situation. I mean, really, I don't know if there's any point in staying in a situation where you're just going to get angrier and angrier. It just makes sense to get out of there as soon as you can, to go to, like often people in work will go to a bathroom or go to their car because they are quiet places where people are very less likely to annoy them, and they can just stop, take some breaths, try and get some clarity on the situation, try and think a bit around it or outside the box and change it. In fact, using your thoughts to change how you perceive the situation is a really key piece in dealing with anger. So if you find that your anger is triggered by something in your past, then knowing how your anger is and managing your anger that way is really important, so you can change how you're perceiving things so that you're not as angry anymore. Or you can say, well, that just reminds me of this, and that's where that anger belongs, but actually in this situation it's different. And you look at what's different in the current situation and why you don't need to be angry and you are safer now. Turning the anger into curiosity about what has happened and what can be changed can be really helpful. So that's a kind of a mindfulness technique of observing a situation and being curious about it. So being curious about your anger can help pull you out of your anger, and then being curious about, well, what in this situation triggered me? What was I afraid of here? Did I feel like someone was squashing me? Did I feel overpowered? Did I feel threatened? And why am I starting to feel angry now? And then trying to unravel that, so really bringing your curiosity into it. Or why is this person being so overpowering? Are they threatened by me? Is that why they're trying to push me down and I'm getting angry in defense? Or is this person someone who starts fights all the time, and am I getting caught in that trap that they create all the time? So being curious helps you to step back, to observe the situation more, and pulls you a little bit away from your own anger. It's harder to be angry when you're like really interested in the situation and really curious about it. If you get involved in problem solving, the curiosity can connect you to problem solving and try and figure out, well, how can I manage this better? How can I deal with this better? What's going on here? It can help you change your emotions and pull you away from anger and into a more observant, interested place. Using humour can really help to manage or deal with anger, can really help to diffuse your anger. And I think this is something that comedians do really well. They get their anger and their fears and they manage them by making jokes about them, or they help other people deal with their fears and their anger by making jokes about it. So again, they find the natural humanness in the situation that brings on the anger, and they throw some light on it. They make it a bit funny. And I think we can do that. We can do that a lot more than we realise, and some people naturally do it. Obviously, it's important not to be inappropriate and start laughing at something when maybe anger is a natural response. In fact, some people do that. They deal with their anger by starting to laugh, and it's a kind of a coping mechanism. But there is a healthy humour that you can add to your understanding and awareness of your human self. I think, for example, when I'm really angry, my inner tantrum throwing 3-year-old will often come out. And I find it really hard at this stage in my life to take it seriously. I used to be scared of my anger when I was younger. And then I started to realise that my anger didn't have as much power over me as I thought. And then I start to find my anger very funny. So I might be very angry with a situation and a part of me will be laughing at the same time. I know I need to be angry because it's an appropriate response and I need to process that anger, or I need to deal with something. Or sometimes I'm in a situation where someone's trying to overpower me and I need to be strong or a little bit angry back. But a part of me might be very entertained by the situation as well, that I'm not fully in the anger because a part of me finds it humorous. So that is something that you need to work on yourself, that it takes a while to really mature in that way that you can own your anger, understand you need your anger, but be mildly entertained by some of it sometimes, not always. But either way, humour is really helpful and important, and something that we should strive towards getting more understanding of in connection to dealing with our anger. Another technique is to try and see the bigger picture and realize, what is actually going on? Where is the anger coming from? Sometimes it's a very valid anger, and actually the response is to be angry. Sometimes you might be working with someone who is actually overpowering you all the time or putting you down all the time, and that's not healthy, that's not appropriate. And you shouldn't stand up for someone being abusive towards you like that. Now, maybe you're in a situation where you can't stand up to that person because actually they have power over you and you will lose your job, and maybe you have a mortgage to pay, so you can't leave your job. But if you find that you're in a situation where the anger is valid, then it's not about trying to stop the anger, it's about trying to find a way out of the situation or change things in some way. Or sometimes if you're really stuck, you can use humour to diffuse the anger. But I think it's important not to do that too much, that anger is there to protect you. And if you are not protecting yourself and repressing your anger, then that stays inside and it's like a pressure cooker. It gets distorted and it comes out in strange ways and it affects our lives. So we need to not be pushing down our anger, and we do need to be dealing with things that are happening to us in life. We do need to be strong. We do need to be empowered. We don't need to accept people bullying us or abusing us in any way. But learning how to figure that out and manage that can take a bit of time. I think the more you learn to observe the anger and observe the situations, the more mindful you will be, the more present you will be, the more calm and clear you will be. Sometimes we can stand up to people and be strong and empowered from a very compassionate place. So the really mature way of managing this is to get into that really mindful, curious, kind, conscious, observing way of seeing what's really happening in life and standing your ground. You can stand up to a bully sometimes from a very kind place. You can be clear and compassionate and strong without having to lose your cool. So again, that's quite an advanced way of managing anger, but obviously why not aim for the more advanced way? Why not really mature how you deal with your anger and how you manage it? So I think really practicing regular meditation or mindfulness really helps with this. If you're really struggling and it all feels like this isn't going to get through to you or this isn't going to work, then maybe sign up for an anger management course, go to a group therapy or a work group that deals with anger, or join group therapy or regular therapy and see if you can find ways to deal with your anger, get support. So I really wish you the best with this. Thank you.